everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and we got Matt and Joe from the movie club here this week as we talk about The Aviator. And Matt and Joe, thank you both for coming on.
Thank you, buddy.
Do either of you like to shamelessly plug anything that all of our lovely viewers can check you out on?
You guys can find me on Instagram. What? Do you got something you want to throw in there?
No. I forgot this part.
We're all about shameless self-promotion here on any of my shows on the Wasteland Reviewer YouTube channel.
And I got too much of an ego, so go find me on Instagram, TedZ70, Joey T Cartoon P, where you can find my artwork, some stuff related to like my movie reviews, and the same handle for my YouTube channels where I have a whole bunch of reviews there from eons ago.
There you go.
I deleted my Instagram, but I'm gonna bring it back. I just need to finish learning 3 songs.
Not shameless enough.
Go back and watch the other times that Shane and I have talked.
Yes, which Matt is my most frequent collaborator on this channel. So there's tons of content. Years of our top 10 films of the year, which we just put out our most recent one like 2 weeks ago for 2021, so go check that out. And obviously, Matt and I have been on the Development Hell podcast since the beginning with Alex. So, and Matt's been on almost every single episode.
OG.
Yeah. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. If you have not tuned into Welcome to the Wasteland before, we have 3 segments on the show. We have Coming Attractions, our feature of the week, which we're coming to the light at the end of the tunnel on this Scorsese train. We're in the 2000s, and in April we'll be wrapping it up, but this week we have The Aviator.
When did you start?
September. Beginning of September. So it's been a while. And then we have some recommendations for you at the end. But to start things off, we have Coming Attractions for February 11th, which some of the big movies, which are none of the ones we actually picked. So there you go. We have Blacklight, which is another Liam Neeson inserted into an action thriller. We have Death on the Nile, which probably would have been a bigger deal if it wasn't for a real Cannibal Army Hammer. And we also have J-Lo and Owen Wilson's Marry Me, which is a rom-com coming out both in theaters and Peacock on the same date. But Joe and I have the same most anticipated, which is Jonet's new film, who made Amelie and Delicatessen and City of Lost Children, and it's Bigbug. So Joe, why are you excited about this?
You just mentioned what movies were coming out, and you mentioned Delicatessen, and the title says Big, but I have no idea what this movie's about, but I'm just going to assume something weird and fucked up's going to happen in it, so I'm probably going to watch that.
Let's
be real.
Disturb me.
Exactly. You go on a roller coaster, you get some thrills, you watch a fucked up movie, and you get your thrills.
I think both of our picks, Matt will talk about his in a second, are both messed up, except this one seems a lot weirder. That one's a little, like, super serious. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Janae and Caro. So knowing that this was coming out, I've known about this since last year, and it finally got its Netflix release, and I'm like, yes.
That's good.
Death on the Nile was close for me, though. I was a pretty big fan. Like, I don't think it's a great film, but I do really enjoy Murder on the Orient Express from Kenneth Branagh. It's just, Disney's trying to kill it and just, like, feel like... this movie's kind of coming out, right? Release a trailer a month and a half beforehand. The silence style. Knowing how to murder a movie's marketing campaign.
And it only, reaffirms how much, Kenneth Branagh probably doesn't feel confident with Disney, considering that he directed Thor, and it's like they're moving away from his version of Thor and more towards like Taika Waititi's version.
I would be more worried about his version of Artemis Fowl.
Yikes.
But Matt's pick is Catch the Fair One. So what about this film stood out to you?
I don't know what it says about me that like so right before we started recording you gave me like a list of 10 different titles and like
there's a lot of movies coming out next week.
And my second choice was going to be the one with Charlie Day because Always Sunny, I could always watch anything with Charlie Day.
Yeah, and the one that I picked probably is like the most traumatizing and real world based on the list. One more time, it's about an MMA fighter who also is fighting against human trafficking.
An MMA fighter puts herself into a sex trafficking ring to find her sister who's being sex trafficked.
That's
Holy crap.
That's even darker than what I.
That's like the Kite Runner, right? In a way.
I don't think I've read it or saw the movie.
Oh, I mean, there is
But
a
in
scene
different
where your
sense.
main character. Well, yeah.
Which-
yeah, it's a messed up.
Yeah,
it's a messed up
so
book and movie.
I got a screener of Catch the Fair one, and by the time this episode releases on Friday, it'll be out already, so I can say this. It is intense and brutal and really well acted. It's like an hour and 25-minute, just like to the point, like this is a thriller and it's gonna make you feel uncomfortable. And not only does it talk about the ideas of like issues with sex trafficking, but also specifically disappearing women, but also disappearing Native American women, which I think is a bigger issue, which if you've seen Wind River, they make a very big deal about that in that film. So, very good pick, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, for a movie to tackle something like that, hopefully it's not disrespectful and it's not kind of like, and it's not, I don't know, like sugary. Hopefully it's like realistic, but then also, yeah, disrespectful. So it sounds like it was since you saw it. So, great.
And then, just to throw out I Want You Back, which is a new Amazon rom-com with Charlie Day in it, basically is like, what if Strangers on a Train was a comedy, and it's two people who get broken up with who agree to help break up each other's exes and their new relationships.
That is something Charlie Day would do for Always Sunny. That does sound like an episode of
Basically,
Always Sunny.
Charlie Day is trying to undermine Scott Eastwood's new relationship, who broke up with Jenny Slate, and Jenny Slate's trying to undermine Gina Rodriguez's new relationship, who broke up with Charlie Day.
I scratch what I just said. That is an episode of Always Sunny when they were actually trying to break up Dennis's relationship. They were trying to see who they could get into a relationship, and they were trying to see if they could. Yeah, that is an episode of Always Sunny.
There you go.
At some point, Always Sunny is going to be like The Simpsons in a way. Just
Yes.
thought about that major
Yes.
Simpsons fan over here.
Yep.
Where like every comedy out there is going to be like, we're going to take a storyline that was most likely done in Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
It's been on for, what, 16 seasons now?
Uh-huh.
It's going, and it's
Yeah.
still going. But those are our coming attractions for this week. Now it's time to talk about our feature film, The Aviator. So, we were chatting a little bit about this, I think specifically Joe and myself, before we got on here. But to give a little background, there's been like 50 different attempts to make a Howard Hughes film in Hollywood, including Warren Beatty, who was trying since 1972, and finally made Rules Don't Apply, which I remember seeing coming out in like 2016 or so, or 2018. But this is obviously like the most famous version of his story, which is The Aviator from Martin Scorsese. This budget was $110 million, and he even admitted he didn't know how to rein in the budget. And this kept like spiraling, which is very interesting because Howard Hughes kept doing that on his own in the movie when trying to make his own film. And this originally was supposed to be this version directed by Michael Mann. And Michael Mann pulled out, and Leonardo DiCaprio got his previous director from Gangs of New York, Martin Scorsese, to come on and do this. So this falls between Gangs of New York and The Departed, which you could check out next week, and we may or may not be doing the whole episode in terrible Boston accents. You'll have to tune in to find out. But
Please say the word wicked.
that's wicked hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm just going to imitate Jack Nicholson the whole time. There's a rat in here.
There we go. There we go.
I smell a rat.
You a cop? But we're not talking about The Departed this week. We're talking about The Aviator. So Matt and Joe, I always like to ask my guests when they come on Welcome to Wasteland, what interested you about coming on for this episode? So Matt, what interested you in coming on for The Aviator?
Yeah. So, this isn't the first time I saw this movie, so I wanted to watch it. I kind of like, sometimes like you'll randomly pick something and it'll give me like an excuse to either to get into something new or to revisit something because, I don't know, because why not? So, watching this movie again, I remember like the first time that I saw it and I was like, wow, I'm not bored at the 1 hour mark, at the 2 hour mark, at 2.5. Yeah, like there's like no parts of this that are like repetitive or boring. Like this movie is so, it's just full of life and it moves so quickly and it's awesome and there's so many interesting tiny little things that are going on. Like like towards the beginning, like when like the colors are like all like shifty.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good movie.
There you go. And Joe, besides me roping into you into this last minute, why did you come on and talk about The Aviator?
For the most part, I would say, I mean, it's kind of a shame. I'm just, any opportunity to talk about Scorsese, I will jump to the opportunity to do so. Martin Scorsese is one of my favorite directors of all time. In fact, I would argue to say Scorsese is the guy to like motivate me to just love movies and to maybe hone in on a craft to make movies, because you know, he just knows how to tell a great story with cinema. and
he knows Italian Americans, and 2 out of 3 of us can relate.
Exactly. and you know what's interesting?
You guess which one.
I know I was kind of like, it's funny you were saying that like I was kind of roped into doing this. I am going to be a little honest. My knowledge of The Aviator is going to be a little bit flat.
That's okay.
It was a movie I've seen a little bit longer ago, but at the end of the day, you know, as a Scorsese fan, you kind of have to do it to yourself to watch Scorsese movies. Is it one of like my favorite, you know, on the top of the list? No, but at the same time, you're still going to get something that you can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Howard Hughes as a person is someone that you're going to want to make a movie about. He has a character in itself, and I could see how, you know, you see this, and it's like, you could tell that this is a movie that people have wanted to make in the business for a really, really long time.
A lot of people were attached to this movie at some point. A lot of directors, a lot of actors. There was a Brian De Palma, Nick Cage version of this lined up in the late 80s. Can you imagine?
That sounds terrible.
I will say
Edward Norton was originally going to play Howard Hughes, and then Michael Mann was going to direct it.
That's
all
true.
kinds of stuff.
But do you remember a brief moment when we did get a good Howard Hughes movie, but in an episode of The Simpsons?
Oh,
where
Mr. Burns, right?
Mr. Burns plays Howard Hughes.
And he's wearing the instead of slippers, he's wearing tissue boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, "Come on, we're gonna go fly my plane," and he's like, puts his feet in like the little plane.
Yeah.
To give this episode a little bit of structure, because you know we have 3 of us chatting about this, I feel like some of the main things to talk about first, like, so you have Scorsese's direction, which is including like the color and the cinematography and stuff. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Then you have Leo as Howard Hughes. You have the rest of this cast, which is ridiculous. And I think Howard Hughes and the person and his story and his impact on things is really interesting. But starting with Scorsese's direction, like there's a lot going on in this film. You know, this was a $110 million film. This was a 3-hour film. There's some intense action sequences because you have all the flying scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And plane crashes. That plane crash, and like towards the end of like the second act of the movie, or maybe halfway through, that was brutal.
Yeah.
That like brutal, bloody, just ugh.
Even, you know, the fact that you're bringing up that scene, it's been a while since that is the one thing I'll always remember from that movie is just how intense that plane crash was.
Well, yeah, because it was like you literally see, number one, the plane hitting the roof and like these huge giant wheels, because it's almost like when you're on a plane, you kind of forget like how big it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, like that thing is huge. And it's not even like the biggest plane in the movie.
No.
Yeah.
Like
it's not the Hercules.
Yeah, and then you see like this, like the wing just like go into someone's house and people screaming, and there's like practical stuff going on. Also like practical. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Which there are some like the moment where Howard Hughes is up in the plane filming. What is it?
Hell's Angels.
Hell's Angels. And, like, the one part where the one plane, like, destroys the camera hanging on the plane, I'm like, that camera was a lot of money. And, like, you know, the beginning of the movie, he's trying to, like, get 2 more cameras from Mr. Mayer from MGM. And he's just like, I have 24 of them, I need 2 more. Just like, what? Who are you kidding? And it's such a fascinating thing. And, like, there's that big that's a big CGI moment because like the plane flying around, he's filming, and there's a lot of CGI and special effects in that sequence. I think the color manipulation, which apparently Scorsese tried to bring back to life 3 different color saturations that used to be in classic films in this film digitally. And that's so interesting because, like, I think the one scene that you see it the most is when he meets Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn on the golf course for the first time, and just, like, the coloring is so odd and off, but it feels like you're watching an old-timey movie with, like, Technicolor and stuff like that.
I was scared my TV was messing up. I thought it was short because, like, I was staring at it, and then I kept, like, looking around my room to see, like, okay, that's not my own vision. And then it's like, I hope this TV that I only had for, like, 2 months isn't breaking.
Which,
I was so mad.
having watched so many Scorsese films, he always finds a way to do some kind of homage. Because, like, he's a student of the game, right? And, you know, Cape Fear's a Hitchcock film. Like, Age of Innocence is, like, that is a period drama. Gangs in New York is like this strange mixture of like modern filmmaking and like just visceral kind of action and everything. And like this, it's really trying to capture like this very old school feel of old Hollywood.
Not only that too, I was going to add, as far as the cinematography, I feel like he takes a lot of that into one of his future movies, which is Shutter Island.
So, I made the same...
We're jumping a couple pages here, right?
Yeah. Haley's actually coming on for Shutter Island in a couple weeks.
Wow.
So, I thought the same exact thing, sitting watching this movie yesterday. I turned to Jess, I'm like, how they capture anxiety with like the flashing, the extremely bright lights, and like the weird cuts, and how they film all of the OCD like freakouts that that Leo has in the film feel just like Shutter Island. And it's really, Scorsese finds his way of representing those kinds of anxieties on screen, and they're extremely effective.
Not only that too, like to add to that point as well, is that, you know, it's funny you're saying that, because overall, when you have characters that are psychologically messed up, Scorsese just understands that, and that's probably why Raging Bull will always be my favorite movie of his, because he captures what anger and rage and fury is really like, where sensation, like the senses, everything, there's noise, there's lights, you can smell it, you can feel it. You know, when someone's enraged and there's nothing else that you can see. Like, to me, he's like one of the few filmmakers who like really captures that, which makes me wonder if like he legitimately has panic attacks and he tries to document. How can I interpret that into a movie?
It's so interesting because I remember writing my Wasteland Vintage Roadshow article about Raging Bull, and specifically talking about those sequences in the film when Jake gets like super transfixed. His anger, like the sound cuts out, the camera cuts to something very specific, it goes in slow motion. Like that one scene where they're at the club and his wife goes up to all those gangsters and he's just like, you could just feel it, him fuming. And like that shot in slow motion of her like going in slow for a kiss, it's just like, we feel like we're in his head. And you feel that in this film. I've never, like, there's very few directors that I felt like have captured anxiety on screen as much as Scorsese does, and all the scenes, like, it seems so interesting, like, it seems like traditional old school Hollywood filmmaking in this film, in The Aviator, until BAM! When they're at that club late at night with Katharine Hepburn's there with him, and Errol Flynn shows up, and Jude Law, asshole, just reaches across and grabs one of his peas, and just like to cut back to the overhead shot of the plate, looking no longer all symmetrical and everything, cutting back to Leo's face, and you feeling everything, cutting back to Cate Blanchett and looking concerned at Leo, and cutting and cutting and cutting to the point where it's like you're feeling anxious about it too. And when a director can do that and put you into the head of his characters, that's something special. And I think that's what really sets this film up above. You know, this was the era of biopics, right?
Yeah.
You get Ray, like, the same year, right? 2004.
That's the year we also got Kanye coming big too. I hate that I always associate Ray with the fact that we got Kanye like coming up and coming, right?
So I guess that's who Leo lost to, was Jamie Foxx that year at the Oscars. I'm pretty sure
He deserved it though. I really loved
because you
Jamie
get
Foxx
Ray, you get Walk Hard. Walk the Line.
Oh, that was the year afterwards.
Walk Hard is what makes fun of all of these biopics.
You stay out of this, Dewey. You don't want any part of this. Drugs are not good.
Which, like, this was a time for biopics to really make a big thing, and like Michael Mann's Ali came out a couple years after this, I think, or somewhere around there. I'm not sure what.
Patch Adams came out a couple years before too.
There you go. So, like, I think what...
Sounds personal.
Damn straight.
Aviator, Ray, Ali, Walk the Line,
Laughter's the best medicine.
Patch Adams.
In that order.
Number one.
And I think that the filmmaking here is what really sets this film apart from a lot of biopics. And I feel like that's what you have to do because, like, and, like, to reinforce Matt's point earlier, the pacing of this does not feel like a 3-hour movie. This is brisk, it moves along, and, like, some of it's really hard to watch. Like, the whole entire recluse sequence, when he is, like, going hardcore into his OCD and just, like, feels so uncomfortable. And, like, all the moments where the one moment where he's like, get me the prints, get me the prints, give me the blueprints, give me the blueprints. And, like, that whole sequence was so uncomfortable to watch because you could just see the mounting anxiety on his face. And, like, his guy that's been with him from the very beginning of the film, right? Who does all of the design and stuff like that. And, like, the filmmaking is just off the charts in this film. And that's why you get Scorsese, right?
Or even like that tiny moment where he's in the bathroom and he's washing his hands, and then someone who needs him to pass him a towel, and so you see like it's almost like the camera's like facing the mirror. You're seeing these two people, and then you see the guy who can't do it himself because he's on crutches, asking for the towel. And then like I guess like the shot kind of like changes to like a close up of the towel. And then it's back to the mirror. No, sorry, I can't do it. Then it's like back to the guy, back to the mirror, back to Leo's face. He's like sweating. The guy has to leave, and he's like washing his hands. And he like cuts himself. There's like so. There's times where like I get either nauseous or frustrated when it's kind of like shot, cut. But in that moment, it's like okay, yeah, wow, like that's how someone's mind would be thinking. Like I'm thinking about what's going on, like looking at myself, looking at my hands. Thinking about what might be on my hands, this person right next to me, the blood that's now on my hand. Did I cut myself? Like it's.
I want to add to that too, Matt, because as you know, the audience may not know this, but for us, we're both licensed counselors. You know, we work with people.
We should plug our.
This is not for the purposes of any of that, but I mean, as a general thing, you know, it's something to think about, right? One of the things I always notice when I'm working with folks is sensation. You know, when you are struggling with generalized anxiety or a mood disorder or something where you can't get your mind off of something, right? Or you're fixated on something, a lot of the times it comes from physical discomfort. So a lot of the times I find it interesting when you notice sensation-wise, and that's what Scorsese does so well, is pointing out when physical things are impacting, they're the triggers, the things that don't even seem like things that would make sense, but for the person, that's the one thing that, will cause this much anxiety is the physical discomfort, and I think that's one of the things that's so great, and I you bringing that up, kind of brought me back to thinking about, what it is that we try to reinforce in people that do struggle with that, with the grounding technique.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, every time he got, frustrated or he got, overwhelmed, I was like, just do some grounding. Just literally, only thing you had to do was pick a random shape and then count how many times you see that shape inside the room that you're in, and then just slow your roll. I literally wanted to walk into the movie and hand him a stress ball when he was in that hearing. I just wanted to hand him a stress ball. I was like, just take this. You need this.
Oh, and he owned that hearing though.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
And then he was representing himself.
Oh my god, that scene that's just a battle between Leo and Alan Alda, and just so fantastic. He just rails into Senator Brewster so hard in that. I had to check this. This did win Best Editing because it had to. How did this film, like, if this film didn't win Best Editing, how did it? There's like, how wouldn't it?
That's the beauty of Thelma, man. Yep. She's like one of the best in the business.
This beat Collateral, Finding Neverland, $1 Million Baby, and Ray, which. This was interesting because both Scorsese and The Aviator lost to Clint Eastwood and $1 Million Baby, which I will argue, I think $1 Million Baby is one of Clint Eastwood's best films, and I think it's an amazing film. And that's a really tough choice, honestly, which the thing is, Martin Scorsese could go out and make any movie and win Best Director because he's just that good.
100%.
Except he's not Streep, so he doesn't win all of it.
No, he comes from the outside. He's on the east side. It's a West Coast thing. It took him a while to get the West Coast, the East Coast vibe.
I feel like he gets the Tom Hanks version of that story where it's like we just take for granted that Tom Hanks is going to be amazing in everything, and then you kind of forget about him because like Tom Hanks didn't get nominated for an Oscar for like 20 years, and he finally got nominated for Won't You Be My Neighbor. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Won't You Be My Neighbor is the documentary. But, you know, Brad Pitt won.
Name any famous person and then have Tom Hanks play it. There's your movie.
There you go.
Jim Henson, a biopic starring Tom Hanks. I'll watch it.
So
have Tom Hanks do Kermit? I mean, come on.
Kermit the Frog here.
Chef's kiss.
So, next up, Leo.
I
think this movie is so important because I feel like this was when Leonardo DiCaprio finally became the leading man that he was going to be.
Yeah.
Because they tried with Gangs in New York, and I don't think it really worked all the way. Because I still felt like on some level he was out of his element up against like Daniel Day-Lewis in that movie, which is a tough thing to do. And I think he was still coming into his own. I watched this movie, and I don't question for a second that he is a fantastic leading actor in this movie.
Yeah, but there was a hero and the villain in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he's everything.
Well, except for Alec Baldwin, who's like... Alec Baldwin and Alan Alda, I think, are the closest things to being just pure villains in this movie.
And I agree, but there was something that I think a lot of people talk about back in the day when this movie was coming out. One of the biggest criticisms people had is that Leonardo DiCaprio is playing an older man, and it came across like a little kid playing an older man. You know?
Or he could have been like J. Edgar.
Like where he's a legit little kid.
Which, it's interesting because putting in context here, so Leo was nominated for Best Actor for this, up against Don Cheadle for Hotel Rwanda, Johnny Depp for Finding Neverland, Clint Eastwood for $1 Million Baby, and Jamie Foxx won Best Actor for Ray. Which... like, that's some tough company.
I mean, the man had to turn blind. Like, he actually had to blind himself in order to play Ray
Glued his eyes shut.
Yeah, they
actually glued his eyes shut.
Actually glued himself.
And I think Leo gives a really great performance in this because this... and I think you see parts of this in his role in, like, What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you have the wrong person playing roles like this, it comes off really offensive. Cue... Tropic Thunder, making fun of this with the whole Simple Jack thing. But the thing is, like, if Leo didn't play this character right, it would have come off as a caricature and a joke.
Yeah.
But, like, he plays it so well, and there's so much underneath the surface. And if you think of Leo, you think, like, this confident, leading, charismatic person, right?
Yeah.
I feel like some of his best roles are when he is insecure. And he kills it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, being, like, ridiculously insecure.
Django Unchained, he's pretty much insecure, too.
Which, he hides that very well in that performance with his grandiose character.
It's all about masking, but when he's in that room with Samuel L. Jackson, it's true.
Stephen,
yeah.
Stephen was in charge. Stephen was in charge of Candyland.
He was.
I love that scene because, like, when Samuel Jackson just turns it on, he's just like, they know each other. And he's, like, a completely different person.
He's got the cognac, too.
Yeah, it's just, like,
he's, like, holding it, like...
But Leo does it again in Don't Look Up that just came out this past year.
Oh, yes.
And there's a level of insecurity that he has in this film because this is not a... There's very few scenes in this film where he's like obnoxiously confident.
Mm-hmm.
The hearing scene, oh my god, he has that room in the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
And he's just playing it like a fiddle. But his whole reaction to fame in this film, that uncomfortable scene with the Hepburn family, which I was so glad when he told them off. I hated them. Hate them so much. And he is just able to bring that insecurity into this, and it works so well. And I think that's why this film works the way that it does, is because he gives such a fantastic central performance.
My only thing, though, and I agree, this is like the first time we really get to see Leo as the big leading man. I would go as far as to say that maybe, just maybe, like Wolf of Wall Street comes around the corner as far as the leading man goes.
Well, like Wolf of Wall Street, I think that's when it's like he's still young in The Aviator, and like he plays like a man over 20 years, and like is that completely believable by the time he gets to 1947? Is he supposed to be like what, 50?
Yeah.
Is that really? But like you have like The Departed, Shutter Island, and then Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And Wolf of Wall Street, he's a towering performance. There's no doubting that in this film.
And it's possible that maybe Jonah Hill is just his lucky charm. He just, as far as them being like good friends, you could tell like he brings the best in him.
Did you hear that Leo made Jonah Hill watch The Mandalorian with him in lockdown?
Nice.
And Jonah Hill was not a fan.
That's adorable. I think he was probably making fun of him, calling him Baby Yoda.
Terrible.
Maybe Leonardo DiCaprio has Jonah Hill as Grogu on his phone.
If that's true, that would be the most hilarious thing ever. Now, thinking about the rest of the cast, who are some of your favorite supporting performances in the film?
When I saw Jude Law pop up on screen, I was like, "Oh crap! I forgot that you're in this."
Yeah, right. Because he's literally in one scene.
I would go as far. I would say that too, because at that point in his career, he was doing a lot of big movies, and you just did see Jude Law in a lot of movies in like the early 2000s.
Then I wanted to see him in an Errol Flynn film. I'm just like, where's that movie?
That's a good question, because like they've been trying to make an Errol Flynn documentary.
They made
biopic.
Was Kevin Kline
Yes.
in that one, or Kenneth Branagh?
I think. Well, you're thinking about like Road to El Dorado, and the fact that they were both in the same movie.
What's the one about like Errol Flynn's like last days? What I know it's one of the two of them. I don't remember.
I think it is the one with Kevin Kline.
Yeah, I love Kevin Kline so much.
Yeah.
Basically, now I just get to listen to Kevin Kline on Bob's Burgers. Mr. Fish Owner. But like, I would have loved to see an Errol Flynn film with Jude Law in it at this point. Willem Dafoe pops up for one scene in this movie too.
How much? Not for sale.
Have
Spider-Man.
you been to any communist meetings? And that got his attention. It's like, can't blackmail him with sex and drugs and shit like that.
Do you just imagine?
Don't be a communist.
Do you just imagine Willem Dafoe just walks on sets and they just they give him the contract after they roll the cameras to get him into the.
Isn't that what happened in No Way Home?
Right. He just shows up and they're like.
Isn't that what happened with Spider-Man 2?
What?
He just showed up and they decide to add that scene of him in like the mirror. It's like, avenge me!
And it makes no sense either, because Harry has no indications of a mental illness or anything, or the or even that connection.
Doesn't matter, because that scene is amazing.
It is perfect.
Perfect.
It's the chef's kiss.
Yes. Avenge me! No! Because like this guy over here loves him some Willem Dafoe's The Green Goblin quotes, and that might be my personal favorite, is him just yelling "Avenge me" at his son.
Wouldn't you say
from
it's
beyond the
back
grave?
To formula?
Yeah, but you gotta say back to formula. That is the best.
Formula.
You gotta jump on the table.
You know what I sacrifice.
Who takes the pictures of Spider-Man? And then you see at the bottom, like someone's pointed it out on Instagram, like he's asking J. Jonah Jameson.
He's literally like.
Photo taken by Peter Parker.
It's on the newspaper. they have to credit these people. Just read the newspaper. See, they didn't even read newspapers back then. I feel like you can't get it through without talking about Cate Blanchett, who won an Oscar for playing Katharine Hepburn.
That was a fantastic impression. Just like the whole thing was just so great. Like the pace of her voice. Mm-hmm. It was like she was
that Mid-Atlantic accent.
Different, and it was great.
This is a good thing I wanted to ask about that. When it comes to famous people who have documentaries and they have behind the scenes footage, is it easier for an actor to capture what the performance would be like when you have, because Katharine Hepburn, she has a incredible backlog of movies, but a lot of behind the scenes stuff and autobiographies and biographies written about her. Like, wouldn't you say, like, as an actor, it gives you more to go off of when you have that library of things to go off of?
I hope that they did, like, their homework, like her, and then also, what was it, like, Julie Gardner? Who was the person that was dating him at the very end?
Ava Gardner, and it was Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
Who's also, I really liked her in this movie. There's a couple of times where she had to get a little fiery with him, and I appreciated that.
Did you know that Kate Beckinsale has an IQ of a 120? They did an Howard Stern interview with her, and her mom attested for the fact that she has an
I follow her on Instagram, and she's ridiculously entertaining as a human being.
Yeah.
And also doesn't age.
Yep.
Basically, her and Elizabeth Hurley, I follow both on Instagram, and neither of them age at this point. But, she's great. But, Cate Blanchett, I feel like in the first scene that you see her, she's really putting it on. And then, as it goes through the film, you see her in a more intimate way. I love that scene where he puts her behind the wheel of the plane for the first time. I think that's one of the best scenes in the film, with just the acting between the two of them. And I feel like Cate Blanchett feels a lot more natural in that scene. And it doesn't... Because, it's really hard to not feel like you're doing an impression of a famous person when you're acting as a famous person. But I think she transcends that and doesn't feel that way. And she earned that Oscar. And then, you have Ian Holm, who I just think is a fun little... Is he supposed to be German or Austrian guy?
It's funny you're saying that, because I feel like nowadays it would be Toby Jones that would be doing what Ian Holmes did in the early 2000s.
Him or either... I feel like you got Stanley Tucci, you have Toby Jones, and Paul Giamatti all randomly pop up in things where you just kind of insert them.
I love that we're talking about this cast, and it really does reaffirm that this movie was made in the early 2000s.
Yep. Well, because you have Ian Holm, who I love the point where he gets the measure and he's like, the cleavage is 5 inches. Yeah. It's just that scene is ridiculous and hilarious. Alec Baldwin is Juan. Yeah, that, I remember when they said Juan Tripp and it's Alec Baldwin, I'm like,
What would Twitter say about that?
A lot.
What would the social media say about that?
We get Javier Bardem at this point would have been Juan Tripp, which, you know what? That's really interesting. I think he would have killed it.
I would be okay with that.
And
that's my Javier Bardem.
And then the fact that Alan Alda pops up in this movie is so fantastic, and I love him in this. He's just a slimy senator in this. He does such a great job. And then, even Gwen Stefani's in this for a scene at the beginning.
Early 2000s, guys.
Gwen Stefani's in this, and just the amount of people that just John C. Reilly continuing his streak in Scorsese films after being in Gangs in New York.
Despite the fact that Matt hates John C. Reilly.
I hate John C. Reilly.
You hate John C. Reilly. I remember we had this conversation once a while back.
What context?
In this
No context.
movie.
I think I was just talking about one day I was talking about Wreck-It Ralph 2 or something. But John C. Reilly. I'm like,
wait, John C. Reilly?
What's the matter with John C. Reilly? You're like, I just don't like him.
We love John C. Reilly here.
Why did I not like him?
You remember this though, right?
We have.
He's coming back. Yeah, why did I hate him?
So Danny Houston's in this. Adam Scott's in this. Matt Ross plays Odenkirk, his designer, and he pops up in a lot of things. I'm trying to see
there's no other man that could shout fuck better than Matt That actor from Silicon Valley.
Oh, that is him!
Gavin Bell.
It is
Bell.
Gavin!
There's no other guy
shit.
that can say fuck and get over the top angry better than that actor.
What the fuck?
I can't believe yet Matt Ross, who plays his engineer in this, is Gavin from Silicon Valley. I'm just putting that 2 and 2 together. That's great.
I love that dude.
It's just, this is just such a fantastic cast.
It is.
And then, you know, like this story, what I was thinking watching this film, like, this guy's James Cameron. Like, Howard Hughes transcended film because of technology.
Yep.
And, like, that's what James Cameron does. Like, I'm going to make a movie about the Titanic. I'm going to literally go to the bottom of the ocean and look at the Titanic. It's just like, what?
I would go as far as to say that, you know, a lot of billionaires,
Yeah, I was
a
thinking
lot
Elon
of
Musk.
people that are just generally have them. It's like Jeff Bezos right now. You know, like, I can just go to space whenever I want.
Tom Cruise is going to go
You
up
know?
and film a movie in space.
Because I can.
Yeah.
You know?
And
Buy Amazon.
I think this is such a
Amazon.
fascinating man because everything he made a new brassiere just for his movie. Like, what the F? Like, he revolutionized women's lingerie just so that he could get the right amount of cleavage in his movie.
It's funny you say that too, because like a lot of like, since we're going off of like billionaires and like historically what they do as like a side effect of something, like, you know, the same thing would go with Walt Disney when it came to the green screen effect. It was really just a matter of just changing, because blue was not working. He's like, why don't we just change it to green? And now everything is green screen when it comes to color cropping.
Well, and that's the thing. And like Walt Disney, Howard Hughes, they were people that literally changed humanity because of what they were able to do with technology. And I think that's why this film's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Dealing with a man with extreme mental illness, with that with his OCD in this film, a fascinating like parade of famous relationships, and then what he was able to do with film and aviation was incredible. And I think this is, like, I don't know if people like Aviator's in my top 5 Scorsese movies, but like this is such a great film.
Yeah.
And that's testament to Scorsese, because you could literally have a top 20 and all of them be like great. There's just so many of them. And I've talked about all of them.
No, you gotta say like Gary Oldman from Leon the Professional.
All of them! All of them!
Everyone.
Wait.
Oh, it was?
Come on, get them. Get everyone!
Yeah, there we go. Splice that scene right now.
It's like, you know, the end of Endgame, it's like, how many characters are we gonna get?
You wanted more? Wong just like, you wanted more? But those are our thoughts on The Aviator.
Yeah.
A lot to talk about this film, all 3 hours of it. And fascinating story, and if you haven't seen it, what's your problem? I'm pretty sure it's on HBO Max. I'm pretty sure like almost all of Scorsese movies are on HBO Max or Criterion.
If you ain't gonna watch it, we're gonna get Joe Pesci to come to your house and
ask you
and
if he's a clown.
Do I amuse you? So now, last segment of the show is our recommendation. So Joe, what would you like to recommend to our lovely viewers out there?
I'm glad I get to talk about this because not too long ago, before we were filming this, I was going to recommend a show to Shane that he already started watching, which is The Righteous Gemstones. I am in love with this show. And it's weird because for a long time I'm very picky when it comes to comedies, and especially new stuff, because I tend to want to wait. I don't want to go on bandwagons. To me, I'd rather want to experience something just on my own. It just happened to be on the front page of HBO Max, and I can't stop watching it. I tend to be a little hesitant when it comes to Danny McBride material because he has a shtick. The beauty of this show is that, like I was telling Shane earlier, is that you have a cast of people that are strong in their own ways that aren't just Danny McBride and friends. You got Walton Goggins being the most Walton Goggins that you can get.
Baby Billy!
As a workaholics fan.
With his comb back, white hair, his big white teeth.
And his penis.
Yeah, you do
Put
see
that
that.
out there,
Like,
too.
literally see that in the first scene that you see Baby Billy.
That's what you see. And then I can't hide the fact that as a John Goodman fan, Isn't it great that you get a character that's just the most John Goodman-esque that you can get?
He's getting even more John Goodman in the second season when you get to spend more time with him.
You get a bowling scene. That's not a spoiler, right?
No, you do get a bowling scene.
You get a bowling scene. That's no spoilers to that, but you get a bowling scene, and there's a good chance that in your back of your mind you go over the line.
Which I wouldn't want to mess with Eli Gemstone, especially after the first half of the second season. Basically, in my impression, I think this is Danny McBride's best show.
Yeah.
Because you have Eastbound and Down, you have Vice Principals. I think he's found this is it.
Yeah.
This is the perfect balance of dark, intense, and hilarious.
It's like. It's kind of like how Community walked so that Rick and Morty can run. I still love Community. But to me, it's like Vice, he did a lot of what he was doing with Vice Principals. Mm-hmm. It just didn't quite hit the right amount of humor and the right amount of darkness. To me, when this show came out, it learned their lesson so that this show can run. And for me,
it's sprinting.
It's sprinting.
And throwing Eric Andre in the second season as a televangelist, and he's one of the ones who's like, Jesus!
Oh my God!
People, fall.
That was actually a bit he did on the Eric Andre show.
Is it really?
It is a bit he does where he's like, Jesus, and people are falling back down.
I just watched Jackass Forever yesterday, and Eric Andre's a great addition to Jackass.
Eric Andre is great. Even Bad Trip was hilarious.
I love him on Disenchantment, too.
Me too.
That show's definitely grown on me, and Part 4 comes out in a couple weeks. But Matt, what's your recommendation for all of our lovely people out there?
Recommendation, so I randomly thought, when you said that there's apparently nudity on Gemstones, I really thought of the fact that there's this show on Hulu now called Pam and Tommy.
Oh my God!
I
You mean fake penises and fake breasts?
That talk.
Yes.
So is it? I didn't see it yet, but is it kind of like Sausage Fest, where it's a cartoon character?
It's a lot more. It's a lot more serious.
So
it's not only
if
like
you've
sexual.
seen I, Tonya, you get because it's Craig Gillespie, you get the tone of this. Because it's crime thriller. Because it's Seth Rogen's the main character ish. Because it's dual.
It bounces, yeah.
He's the main character. Because he's a guy, a construction worker, gets screwed over by Tommy Lee and steals her sex tape and tries to sell it, and then the whole second episode.
Yeah.
Oh my God! When I heard that Jason Mantzoukas was going to be voicing Tommy Lee's penis, I'm like, what? And then I watched
Just
it.
that sentence alone.
And then I watched it. I'm like, what the F is going on here?
Yeah, it's like, Seth Rogen, where are you? Oh, there you go. There you go. There you go.
And
he produces it also.
Yeah, you know what? So I'm going to quote what I quoted in front of Jess. Those are the most realistic fake versions of fake breasts I've ever seen.
Yeah, there's a lot of prosthetics going on.
I have to say this. I'm sold on this just for the fact that talking about Seth Rogen makes me appreciate the fact that I would love to be in a writer's room with them. Probably smoking marijuana with them, obviously.
With a mullet.
With a mullet.
God, his mullet. And how early 90s, mid 90s this soundtrack is off the chain.
I should say, what was that song? What was that song that I loved? I can't remember, but there's a lot. The soundtrack is awesome. But don't think for a second it's just funny. It's also really, really serious.
Yeah.
It goes.
It's
into,
really intense at points, and Tommy Lee scares me a couple times.
Yeah.
Well, he does in real life. He was kind of a scary person.
A convicted person.
Yeah.
But
unfortunately, or whatever.
Yeah, so Pam and Tommy just debuted its first 3 episodes this week. So it's going to be 1 episode each week moving forward.
I think Wednesdays,
Mm-hmm. Yes, Wednesdays on Hulu. They haven't had a big Wednesday show since Dope Sick ended.
Yeah.
So
that was another good one too.
Yeah, I skipped that one.
I think you should check it out.
Dope Sick?
It's definitely
Dope Sick. Yep.
Not that
it's a serious
it's serious, but as someone that works in that realm.
Healthier.
Yeah, it really does capture the anxiety of having to deal with opiates
Yep.
and the ramifications of opiates, and basically the epidemic that we're still in right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now, to wrap things up, my recommend... Go ahead.
Can I do two?
Sorry.
Two random ones? Two random ones. Okay, just because I need to keep saying it because I feel like no one watches it. Reservation Dogs is a fantastic show. Also on Hulu. Fantastic. Funny and serious, like more
Taika
serious.
Waititi, basically.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. And then also, if you want to watch a movie that does really intentionally in your face, really interesting things with like camera and film stock or whatever to kind of like show like a shift in time period, I think it still should be on Netflix. Watch Steve Jobs, written by Aaron Sorkin, because there are like these three. It's like three different sections.
Can I give you my Fozzie the Bear impression? Wow.
I
want you to do Goofy at the end.
Ka-chow.
Oh, we gotta set that up, by the way, if I do that.
Okay.
For the record, I was one of the 5 people who saw Steve Jobs in theaters before it got pulled after literally a week and a half in AMC's. Literally got pulled after a week and a half because nobody saw it, and you're all wrong.
Yeah.
Because you should have seen it.
But it's like fantastic in the sense where it's like, okay, it's this time period, and it truly looks like, wait, what year am I in? And then it shifts again.
And then you just look at the Apple computer, and then you realize what time period it is.
Yeah, also that too. It's like, why is the Apple computer thing? It's not a flat
And the movie
screen.
the movie does use different cameras. It uses 16 millimeter, 32 millimeter, and then digital.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
So my quick recommendations here, which yes, Steve Jobs. 1, The Worst Person in the World, from Joaquin Trier, which is up for Best International Film at this year's Oscars. Go show this movie some love when it expands, because it's doing the stupid... I could go off on it. I should talk about release strategies on an episode of Wasteland Talks. But I'm keeping that in my back pocket.
And at one point before we wrap up too, there's one more recommendation from another fellow coming in. Hey, Goofy, come on over here. Wait, oh shoot, don't fall in it.
So go watch The Worst Person in the World.
It's been 10 years, I still laugh at that like if it's the first year.
Worst Person in the World, when that comes around. And also Cannibal the Musical, which is available to rent on Amazon, which is a student film from Trey Parker and from the creators of South Park, about literally a man who's accused of being a cannibal after his whole entire crew get lost in the wilderness and all get eaten alive.
I think Goofy's actually seen that. He's coming out of the hole to talk about wants to talk about this movie too. Come on. Oh, he fell again.
He sounds sad. Wait, but I think Chewbacca's there too, and I think the moon is falling on him. Wait, can you do this?
Come on, no. This is what happens when we get Chewbacca. Somehow a moon is just always falling on him.
And that's a wrap on this week of Welcome to the Wasteland with Matt, Joe, and your Wasteland Reviewer. Thank you all for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.
Oh wait, is that Yoda?